Ooh.
It puts the Sigmar on the table. Like, oh my god. All right. We get into a comfortable position here. No.
Get in the mood, because it's about to get started. We're going to attempt our first podcast. We'll see how this goes. We just got started, I promise.
Welcome to Razortree Productions. I personally welcome you.
So, roundtable introductions. Jarrod here with Razortree Productions with Bryan.
With Razortree Productions.
Yeah, and Sean.
Also with Razortree Production.
Baby Oil Productions.
with Gets Good Gaming. Baby Oil Productions.
So,
a subsidiary of Baby Oil Productions.
So now all of Bryan's bat reps have to be Baby Oil Productions bat reps, and then all yours, Sean, are Gets Good bat reps.
Yep.
And mine are just plain. Oh. So how do we know each other? I'm Jarrod. That's how y'all know me. That's it. Strong intro.
We're related.
We are. Sean is my cousin. So
first cousin.
Well, I mean, right. I don't know if you were my first one, but you're definitely one of them.
I think most of your cousins happened at the same time, like when you were born.
Can I introduce Bryan for you? How y'all know each other?
Yeah, I want to hear how this goes.
Basically, Bryan beat up Jarrod.
We met before that.
We had a few first.
It's probably my favorite best friend story of anyone I know.
All right. I would like to hear your interpretation of it. Honestly, I want to know how it gets lost in translation here.
All right. So when I do this, I'm Bryan. So this is me wearing a beard. And when I do this, I'm Jarrod. This is me not having a jaw. So okay, that was rude. So here's what happened. I heard you were talking about me. Hey, I heard you were talking about me. Punch, punch, punch. Let's be best friends.
I mean, okay, that's pretty accurate.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty accurate. We had an instigator who was telling each of us that we were talking smack about each other, and we barely knew each other at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Now he works for intelligence in the government, so we don't really talk about him. And we let it pass.
It is what it is. Okay, let's move on.
Let's never talk of this again.
Last thing I want to do is commit suicide. So let's keep going. But yes, that is accurate. We got into a fight, and then we kind of just have to walk in the same way home after the fight. But like a cop was there, so we're like standing right next to each other, like, nothing happened here.
Nothing to see here.
And then we get to the end, and we're done. And
this blood occurs naturally.
There you go. And then we kept Jarrod alive from his mother's unique cooking style.
I'm really glad she doesn't know how to use YouTube.
I didn't say bad. I said unique. I'll let you say bad.
I didn't say it either, and nor will I.
No comment.
Well, Sean, that's just because you stole all the recipes.
Do we have to get started on the recipes again?
But yeah, and so I've known Jarrod for forever, and I think the first time I met Sean, it was at New Year's at Jarrod's house, and he was falling down drunk in a bathtub. And
I thought it was the time you broke my pinky when you kicked it.
That was the second time I met you.
I met you. There seems to be an ongoing thing with you, Bryan, and our family, as you inflicting bodily harm and then being best friends.
I'm taking down the Jarrod Butler timeline, taking down everyone in his family. Okay, we're going real pro wrestling on this one. We're just going to work our way down the chain. No one left.
I imagine it doesn't surprise you, but I don't recollect our first meeting.
Then it went well.
There you go.
Good for me.
But yeah, that was pretty much it. That's how I met both of you guys.
Well, I don't remember that party, but it sounds like that's no surprise.
It was New Year's at your house, and yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, how was that?
It's another thing we probably won't talk about because we probably weren't legal. Oh well.
You know, I'm pretty sure that you know, any kind of laws that were broken, we have long since passed the
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, so I think we're okay since we're all really old now.
Yeah, it's true. Which is interesting that it took most of us so long to get into wargaming, which is what brought us to the channel. It's Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So I guess, Brian, we'll start with you. How did you get into wargaming?
Sure, yeah. So basically, it was just because all of us were hanging out, and we decided we were going to start playing some D&D again. And so I went and got the books and started, like drawing up maps and stuff. And that's great, but I kind of wanted some models to like represent the characters so I could get better visualizations and stuff like that. And so I forget which one of us bought one first, but we went out and bought models of our characters and started painting them terribly. They were god awful. We used the stuff you can get from Walmart and like,
no primer.
Yeah, like just started painting them. Then whenever we did figure out primer, we just got like the crappiest primer you could. And that helped a little, but not much.
When we learned how to spray it.
Then we learned to that the actual primer you're using makes a huge difference. And then I forget at what point, but eventually, I'm like building structures and stuff like that, and you guys are pursuing the painting. And I think it was Sean actually kept going with the painting route, where I'm going with like the building scenery and doing all that. And then I forget who got I think it was Jarrod. I think it was you and Sean split a box.
Well, even before that, what got it started was this was all D&D minis and like Pathfinder minis and stuff like this at this point. But at some point we're like, we need some like bad guys, and all we have is hero models. It'd be nice to have something aside from like pennies and tokens and gems to be bad guys. And I saw a Storm of Sigmar box, which came with like 3, at the time I had no idea what it was. I was like, look, 3 paladins and 3 berserkers. And it was 3 Stormcast Eternals and like 5 or 6 Blades of Corn, all for like $35. And I was like, that's a lot of like miniatures for a good price. That's better than what we're paying for them right now. So I got that with like, hey, look, we've got stuff to represent NPCs and random things. And turns out I had a rule set, and turns out Age of Sigmar was actually Warhammer Fantasy. And I didn't even know Fantasy was gone at that point, because I originally had a fantasy army back in 2000. I bought a whole bunch of dark elves out of the back of a guy's trunk in a dark parking lot.
Safety first.
Yeah, cash payment, and
dark elves.
This was pre-cell phone, so you need to preface that how long ago this was.
Yeah, I mean 2000, and for most people that may not be pre-cell phone. They still might have had their box Nokia phones by then.
Was it
I
Nokia
didn't.
time? Okay,
I didn't. Because I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 22. Because my mom bought it for me. But no, I bought this like dark elf army that consisted of what is now Daughters of Cain, because I had a bunch of witch elves. It had some Order Serpentis, but at the time it was just dark elves. And I could not get a game because it was really complicated to learn, and there weren't a lot of people that could play. And if they could play, they didn't want to spend the time to teach. And after trying to learn, I understand why. And I bet that's a common story for people, is having fantasy models but never having a game. So I ended up painting a lot of them in my free time, like my last year of high school, in my dad's garage. And YouTube didn't exist at this point. Tutorials were like in magazines that you had to know a place to buy them from, and those didn't exist where I was. No. So it was
Dark Ages.
I want my dark elves to look like dark elves. And for me, my only reference to dark elves were the Dritz-Dorden D&D novels, which at that point in 2000s, early 2000, was probably like everybody's reference to Dark Elves because I was quite in edgelord mode at that point. And,
Yes, you were.
so I was like, I'm going to paint these good, respectable colors, like black and blood red. And so I did. I bought paints.
The best colors.
No, obviously. And I bought paints. I couldn't even tell you what kind of paints I bought. Red and black. That's the extent of what paints I could tell you I bought.
Honestly, Jarrod, from looking at it, I bet they were the tester's paints that you would get for like doing model cars.
Are you sure they weren't like markers?
No, markers would have been much better quality.
I remember looking at it, I was like, this kind of looked like you just markered them. Like,
no, I wish it was that good. Paint. I really wish it was. No, what ended up happening is I just got whatever colors I could find. And, they were out of squeeze tubes, like plastic squeeze tubes. I do remember that. And I didn't know you needed to mix paint with water. I didn't know that primer was a thing. I just thought, I want red model. Me put red paint on model. So it was just dip in, go straight to the model and just coat it on. I didn't know about coats. It was paint the shield red until the whole thing's red. It's a little lumpy. Whatever. I'll keep it.
Spread that out.
That's
all
right.
You got to do.
Yep. Well, I ended up getting rid of those because, again, couldn't get games. Had them for years and just gave them away to some friends. Well, recently, those friends got them back to me, as well as more, like what they'd acquired through the years. And now those models in the same paint scheme, untouched, because, hey, it has paint. I'm not touching it, are on videos. So, yeah, I've got some good old close-ups of those bad boys and girls.
Oh, yeah.
So I find it amusing, your time frame, Jarrod, because you said around 2000, right?
Around there, yeah.
So, and just to kind of go back when we were talking about D&D first, I do remember your conversation. We actually talked about buying Warhammer minis. All of us did, because the thought was like, hey, we can use these for D&D minis. And like as a secondary use, if we ever want to play Warhammer, we got these really cool minis and they're already ready to use. So it was kind of like an afterthought, like, hey, we get these cool D&D minis. They're good price. Like the quality is really good quality. And maybe we can like learn this game if you guys want to. So that wasn't the intention, but like it ended up going in that direction pretty hard. But I do remember that conversation pretty vividly, Jarrod, that we all had, that you kind of led the charge there on that. And when it comes to the painting, I remember I was the only one that knew how to paint poorly at the time and giving y'all really bad tutorials on how to paint and trying to explain dry brushing and ruining most of Brian's models with me dry brushing. So
but we thought at that point, we both thought you were the paint god.
Oh yeah. My terrible painting was superior to y'all's terrible.
How are you able to paint so good with such shaky
God-given guilt? Let's not talk about my shaky paws.
There's like more than one color.
So what I was saying is 2000 was my first year at Gen Con. And I'd always been kind of interested in Warhammer and wanting to pick it up. But at that time, it was expensive. And I had other luxury hobbies at the time. But at Gen Con that year, I saw the really cool fantasy starter kit they had that had the Bretonians. And so I was like, this is badass. I've got to get this. So I picked it up at Gen Con that year, which happened to be around the same year you picked up yours from a less reputable dealer.
Hey, look, it's the only way you should buy Dark Elves, okay?
That's a fact. And so I remember taking them home, and then the book was like War and Peace. It was the thickest book I've ever read. I legitimately have never read a book that big before. And I remember putting the models together, and they were really cool until I started trying to paint them and realized I have no clue what I'm doing. And like you said, no tutorials, no help. I didn't have the basic understanding of like what's a base coat, what a shade is, those things that make it to where when you're initially painting, you can have a reasonable quality product without really having an exceptional skill base yet. So didn't know any of that. So that was like one strike, and then I got a hold of the book. And I was working like a second job at the time. And so I was able to read for 8 hours a day. So mind you, reading 8 hours a day is what it took me to get through this book. And the rules were so convoluted with tacking and turning units and different roles. And it was so overwhelming that I was just like, I can't do this. There's just no way. And I don't know anyone that plays this game. So ended up giving them, selling them to our local game shop where you have purchased multiple things since from. So that was my first attempt into Warhammer. Didn't go as well the first time, but Sigmar did make a big difference. The rule changes and the simplifications and the beautiful models and everything they implemented were just instrumental in us all getting into it. The change in rules is what really, to me, was the selling point, because they were the fact that, when we were doing the demo initially, it was a laminated paper, front and back was all that you needed to really start for a very basic, simple game. And that was just like, that was a huge moment. So
yeah, and it's funny because some of the community makes fun of the fact of how it started, because apparently we got in after General's Handbooks existed, because at some point they apparently didn't, and there weren't points, and you just kind of fielded what you felt like fielding, and then have a good game. So apparently timing was everything for us. But point there is, a lot of people pick on the fact that it used to be such a simple rule set, but that's actually what got us all playing. And there was another big catalyst there too, especially for me, because none of us had like a full army at that point. We just had kind of smatterings of stuff. But for a Christmas present one year, I opened my door to go to work one day, and there's a package on my doorstep. What is this? And I see, and it's from Dave, and it's a huge battle box of the Vanguard Stormcast set. It's like 2-3 years ago, something like that. Probably 2. But anyway, all of a sudden, I had all this stuff from the Storm of Sigmar box, and I think you ended up buying a Thunder and Blood box just to get more Berserkers. Which for us, the Blades of Khorne were like, Berserkers. And so all of a sudden, we've got all these Stormcasts, and I started reading the rules more intently and was like, these are really easy to follow. This is actually really easy to play. I think I understand this, and I think I want to do this. I've wanted to play this game for so long.
Yeah,
I've got to get at least one game in. And
and about the same time you got that box is when I picked up the Ogres, and I found a lot of people online selling lots for very inexpensive. And so about the same time you were increasing your army, and the Bryan happened to be doing the same thing as well. So we all started kind of to increase our collection at that point.
Yeah, it's true. So that's it's funny that we all started like that. And I decided I was going to challenge myself to paint, which the first challenge was assembling. That I was so scared to even touch the plastic to assemble a model because I'm so clumsy. And I was able to do it, and I still cut the crap out of myself because I didn't realize that you needed like special cutters. I was just like, whatever, X-Acto knife for everything. I'm going to cut these out of the sprue with my X-Acto knife, and then shave the bits down with an X-Acto knife, and then I'll fit them together with my X-Acto knife. And so I got cut a lot, and my wife was like, just give that to me. And so she took it over and realized she loved assembling, which worked out great for me.
And she's exceptional at assembling.
Yeah, like she... it's like mold lines and completely fit together perfectly. And I'm like, the plastic's touching. It's good, right? It should make some people teeth itch, but yeah, I ended up with, so I guess we'll start there. Like what armies we started with. Mine is Stormcast Eternals. I loved them because when I got that Vanguard box set, I didn't know that the Vanguard chamber existed. Once we kind of got into learning what this stuff was, we weren't heavy into the lore. We just kind of like, I know what each army kind of is and what it represents, but I don't know an overarching story. So then I was like, wait, these are paladins made of lightning that shoot guns? I was like, wait, so they have all this plate, but then they sit back and shoot. That's hilarious. And also it looks cool. Man, now I want to play this. So that's where I started with Stormcast Eternals. Sean, you kind of hinted there. What was your first one you actually built to play games with?
It was actually my Khorne army, if you recall. Because remember, I got the Korgorath and thought it was just the coolest model because it's basically 85% Blood of the Blood God. It was the first model I painted. And the problem I had was, as most addicted collectors, is I went too deep too fast. And I got too many armies and I got too many things, and I overwhelmed myself. So now, Jarrod, you have my Khorne as a result. And I decided, like, I really love the ogres, the Beast Claw Raiders, the ogres. And I've always, and of course, you can remember back from when we, L5R and other games we've done, goblins have always been a spot of love for me for any sort of any fantasy game or anything. So I stick with the Gets are my probably my primary, but it's really close because the ogres I really enjoy as well.
Well, and you got to remember too, back then, Beastclaw Raiders had a battle tome,
which I have, and it was terrible.
Yeah, ogres didn't.
Nope.
Or Gutbusters is what they were at the time.
Gutbusters, yep.
And Gloomspite Gits did not exist at this point. It was just like MoonClan Grots and Blars and Git mobs or whatever that. So, you know,
trolls, and there was all kinds of craziness, and it was it was not very cohesive. Any of the which is ironic that I'm playing Chaos and none of them were cohesive. But it's what I love, so that's what I stuck with. The Beast Claws, the ogres, and luckily they started to come together. They put books out, and you know, still learning them. It's still something that I've stuck with, and that's what I intend to continue playing and kind of figure the different ways to play them and get better with them.
Yeah, I moved on to Cities of Sigmar, but you know, people that watch the channel, I've got battle reports for that, and you can see that. But Brian, the most consistent of us. Where did you start and where are you now?
Yeah, Brian has been.
I started out with Nurgle, but it wasn't like really anything where I was like walked into a store and I was like, I want to do Nurgle. But really, I started out like I liked the game. You guys were already playing it, and I wanted to get Aiden into something, my oldest daughter. And so I was like, well, hey, why don't you come pick out an army and we'll assemble some stuff and maybe you can play some games at the local shop, because she had just moved in with me. She didn't know people in the area. And so I thought it'd be a good way to, you know, kind of just meet some other folk and have some fun. But we walked in and she's like, I want those disgusting things right there. And it was like a start collecting box. And I was like, let's do it.
Brian, the love she had for those at first sight is unparalleled.
Yeah. And so it's like, let's do it, man. I went and picked those up, and I got like Blight Kings. I picked up like every bit of Nurgle there was. And then she was like, yeah, I'm done with this. Like about 5 minutes into it. And I was like, well, I guess I'm the Nurgle guy now. I just started painting. I've ran through most of the Nurgle stuff, and I just figured, well, I really I like the Nurgle a lot. They're pretty cool, but I'm ready to paint something else. And the army that stuck out to me with the Skaven, and so I started looking through all the different Skaven, and I decided I want to do the Scryer because I like the low model count because they're not brave, and so I was like, well, if there's not many of them, who can run away? So, so it's like all clan scryer, and they just blast people as best they can without blowing themselves up. Doesn't work out all the time, but who cares? And then recently, I started picking up a lot of Beasts of Chaos. I just like their models, like the way they look and stuff. But then I started seeing whenever the book came out, and I saw you could mix it with the other Chaos. You know, I plan on expanding more through Chaos. I've already got some Slanesh that I'm going to be working on. I figured, well, shit, I'll just pick up more Beasts of Chaos and intertwine them as necessary. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun painting them all up and getting it all ready to go. Playing a few little tournaments. Unfortunately, mortal Nurgles, so they suck and you don't win very much doing that. But I still like them. So yeah, that was pretty much where mine went.
Yeah, Chris, my wife, she's not on here because she's too pregnant to sit still this long. But she started with Fire Slayers. That was her first love, because her two favorite things in the world are dwarves and bare asses, and they have both of those. So she was all in. And then when Soul Wars came out and second edition Age of Sigmar came out, Night Haunt caught her eye, and she's just stuck with it. And you know, she's not a fast painter, but she's a good painter. And then we've got some videos on the channel finally with her Night Haunt being played, and she's all in for that. So by pure accident, the four main people of the channel have separate Grand Alliances. We have all four Grand Alliances covered. And I think that's a pretty nice accident to run across.
Oh yeah.
And I can't wait to do, like we talked about, doing the Grand Alliance War to where we can do the 4-player game. I'm very excited for that still.
Oh yeah, I think it's Triumph and Treachery rules, but there's a rule set to have multiplayer. We're going to do that, and can't quite decide how many points we want to do.
2,500.
Oh, geez.
I'm all for that.
Well, I mean, I've
It's
already
going to
got.
take 5 days to complete this match.
It's going to be a 5-hour battle report. Hope you're ready.
Can I fill my entire army with stabos?
I mean, you've got enough.
I don't see why not.
You know, it's funny that we started at such a good time, and then we also just were getting into it when they fixed so many problems that we didn't even know existed. So like we have a luxury of being involved and just having fun the whole time through without knowing any of the headaches. Because we started when there were points, and we didn't know it was bad because it's our first war game. None of us had played a war game up to this point.
At all.
No, at all. So in
I had a
first
little
edition-
bit, but it does. I mean, not enough to really count it.
Yeah, I think I
like
played
Hero
some,
Clicks.
Yeah, and I played some X-Wing for like 6 months. But, you know, first edition, it's funny to look back at some of the things that you could do and couldn't do. Command points didn't exist. It was just, if you could use one command ability of hero phase, and if you did it, then that was it. You didn't generate command points. Bases didn't actually matter for movement or for piling in or anything. You measured from the closest part of the model to the closest part of the model. So you could stack your bases on top of each other as long as the models weren't touching or overlapping. A lot of weird stuff. And, you know, in second edition, that went away. You know, you actually measure base to base. Bases matter. They actually do have to be around. Don't have to be, but it's strongly suggested to be round bases. There's command points now, so you have more versatility with how you spend it. A lot of streamlining. Look Out Sir didn't exist in first edition. Does now. It's funny to look at how far it came. I still remember one of our first games, because our first games were always like two or three people at least. And we thought Maggotkin of Nurgle, because it had just gotten their new book, were like the most powerful thing you could ever be. Like a 5-up ignore wounds and mortal wounds, like you can't get more powerful than that. And we were like, this is going to be the most powerful army I've ever seen.
But wait, if you kill one of the plague bears, then they can come back too.
Yeah, and it was so much. It was overwhelming to us. You know, and it's funny because I mean, Nurgle's gone a lot of places and come to a lot of places since then, but you know, they certainly weren't ever, I don't think, what you would call S tier. And well, we sure thought they were the best thing ever because I mean it was ogres and Stormcast versus Nurgle, and we barely even knew what to do with the rules.
Oh my god, I forgot I was playing ogres before there was a book and having to use the old rules.
Dude, we've got battle reports of you playing Gutbusters, and actually of me playing Gutbusters with your army.
Yeah, and remember going to the tournament and playing the big tournament with the original rules?
North American GT. Sean and I both took armies with no battle tome. Under Grand Alliance rules, he took
just
Gutbusters.
to represent.
Yep, just because you took Gutbusters, and this was pre-cities, so I took Phoenix Temple, which had almost no representation back then.
And 3 units.
Yeah. A leader on a bird, a leader on foot, and a battle line unit. What else? Oh, that's it.
A bird.
Yeah, that's it. You could bring some Stormcast because you could ally them in, and that's what I did. I think my list at the time for the GT was like 2 Frost Phoenix with Anointed Riding, 2 Knight Azeros, a Knight Incanter, and then like 6 or 7 units of Phoenix Temple. 10-man units of Phoenix Temple.
But how funny was it how far you got in that tournament just with skill, ingenuity, and like your thought process on putting the list together and looking at top meta, and like we really talked it out and realized like first of all, my army, we were it was a competition for who could get last place. Somehow I didn't get last place. Don't know how that happened, but somehow I did not get very last place. But you ended up on top table the second day with your Phoenix Temple list. And that was so cool.
I did. The last game I played was against Matthew Reniger with a 34 model Legion of Blood list. It was like a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, another Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, Bloodseeker Palanquin, and Neferata, and then 3 10-man units of Chain Rasps. And I was playing him. We were playing for second place, and then I lost that game because my army is weak to 2 battle plans. At the time, it was weak to 2 battle plans: Duality of Death and what's the other one? Places of Arcane Power.
Yeah.
And
because your hero count.
And this is the 2018 different versions. So it's either a wizard or a hero with an artifact for Places of Arcane Power. And, you know, going first helps. and Duality of Death is before battle line, so it was only heroes. First hero that gets there controls it, and I'm not going first because I had like 10 plus drops, and both those battle plans were in that tournament. And those are the 2 games I lost actually, and I ended up getting, it dropped me down to like 11th or 12th place at that point.
Yeah, but that's using also, remember, and we talked about that. I know there was some discussion of how ratings go, but like when it comes to without the judging, from like, do you like this opponent points and everything else, you were within like the top 7, I believe, or top 5 of that tournament.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2 of the people that were ahead of me, I had beaten in a game, but there's a lot of discussion about what's more important, the overall hobby or just the competitive nature of a tournament. And I agree with everyone. As weird as it sounds on this, like, yes, you should factor all this in, but like a competitive tournament, I personally feel like how you play should be how you win that part of the tournament. And you should still award people for sportsmanship. You should still award people for painting. You should still award people for presentation, but they should be kind of on a separate from your actual tournament score. And I've run a tournament now once like that, to where these all factor in as like tiebreakers, or have their own separate but linear thing happening at the same time, where you all get rewarded for all those things. But it's like, we come from card games, collective card game tournaments, so we're used to strength of schedule and all that. But the way I'm doing it now is it still is it's random for the first round, and then it goes to best records, where you first look at kill points to break up the ties, and you go kind of strength of schedule from there with kill points, and then sportsmanship, while also having its own reward, is the second tiebreaker. So in the end of the tournament, if somebody ties on kill points, then whoever has the best sportsmanship will then win at that point. But the sportsmanship is still a separate and kind of more important trophy. I want to keep it like that for my next tournament too, where the sportsmanship gets you kind of the best reward overall, but you still get first place for how you played in the actual tournament.
I wanted to kind of touch on something with that too. You and I, Jarrod, do come from CCG background, competitive, and we were very high level competitive players for a very long time. And so when we look at something being played as a tournament competition, that's how I look at it, as skill, and that's how you do as well. There's a definitive difference between a competitive game where you're competing, and there's a definite tracking method to where there's not any additional factors that are out of your control with your skill and such. So I do really like having those other factors that you mentioned in as like tiebreakers and to help with strength of schedule. And I did notice, one thing also coming from playing CCGs for a majority of my life, the Warhammer community, I've really enjoyed. Very friendly community. I found it to be a lot more inviting and a lot more friendly community than I have a lot of the other games I've played competitive. It's something that immediately I noticed a big difference.
Absolutely. It's almost overwhelming, because you meet some people like that in card games, and then they do a bad trade with you and you realize why they were doing it. But I haven't come across that at all in this as well. What has your experience been with the community outside of our own with wargaming, Brian?
I never did anything competitive in this kind of stuff until Warhammer. So the only experience I've had is in Warhammer, really, because every time I've ever tried to go into anything else competitive, it's been like raffle stomp or try and pull something fast on you, and it's kind of just turned me off of that. But I mean, like just going into that tournament that you held last time, everybody there was just awesome. They were really nice. They were explaining kind of their tactics and maybe different ways I could approach it, since my army was terrible. And but it was terrible by choice. I wanted to play an army I knew was weak, but that's a lot of fun to play whenever you get some good rolls. And so that's just kind of where it came from me, and that's probably the only reason that I've stuck with Warhammer instead of just throwing it in a shelf somewhere and looking at it because I think it looks cool, but actually continuing to play it. It's just because I can actually play at a tournament or with one of you guys or something like that. And even though I'm not an expert by any means, like I could still have fun and still do well, because it seems like it's less about knowing every little detail of every rule, especially now that I have AOS reminders to remind me of some stuff that I'm supposed to do.
What an amazing addition.
Boy, howdy, that helped me a lot, because I would just forget and be like, oh shit, I could have, but
yeah, I will straight plug this guy because he's doing God's work here. But Davis E. Ford, I believe, is the guy's name that does it, but AOSreminders.com. If you play at no matter what level you play at, even if you're just playing for fun, my goodness, go put your list on AOS Reminders, and it breaks it down by phase. It breaks down every ability you have by phase and when to use it. And it's just it's like Brian said, it completely changes things, because a lot of the things that I don't want to downplay it by saying you don't have to think, because you still do, but you can concentrate on your strategy, because you don't have to worry about forgetting what you have.
Well, and I'm the perfect example too, Jarrod, because how many games have we played where I'm learning a new army and I'm still in the learning phase, and we're just like, oh, we forgot. And how many times your reminder, Sean, download this, Sean, do this, Sean, you got it down, Sean, AOS Reminders, Sean, did you download AOS Reminders? So it's really like just like you said, it doesn't matter your skill level. And even when it comes to learning a new army, I think it may even be more helpful there to help you start getting that routine and getting used to doing those things, because there are times with a new army, there's just so much to remember. And then you go through and, trying to figure everything out, having something there just to break it down phase by phase by phase. Here's what you can do this, do this, do this. It's instrumental in getting to know your army.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I had a thought about card games and I lost it here. Oh, right.
Dishonor.
Yeah, it's like the card game we played the most competitively, especially for me, was Legend of the Five Rings. I played Scorpion, but in tournaments with card games, it was stressful.
It was very stressful.
I loved it, absolutely loved it, but it was insanely stressful. I would get the gamer sweat like nobody's business, and like you would get worried, and you'd like start, oh god, if I get this matchup, what am I going to do? And man, if I put this in my deck, I don't know, man, I don't know, I think I messed up. And
people were known to be jerks. Like oh, this guy's a jerk. Like these people, some of the people have a reputation for just being just outwardly unfriendly.
Yeah, it was rare to have a fun game at a tournament, as in like a relaxed, we're joking, we're having fun, even though we're going at each other as hard as we can. Age of Sigmar, however, no matter how competitive of a game I've played, you're still laughing, you're still having fun, you're still relaxed, and there's a social really element to it that never goes away. Well, it's a longer game. You play a card game and you're playing competitively, you might have a 15-30 minute game, maybe. And with this one, at best, you've got a 2-hour game.
You got some time to dedicate. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the game itself. That's not even factoring in the time these people have put into their army. Like in a card game, we bought the cards, we put our deck together, we sleeved our cards. Like that's the work we put into it. And that's the work our opponents put into it.
Well, there was quite a bit more, Jarrod. You remember how much time we spent playing?
Right. With the play testing. But
yes.
For the point here, I'm saying like when you have your army that you're bringing, you have painted hours and hours. You have assembled, if you're as bad as me, for hours and hours. And so has your opponent. And I mean, it's harder to lose or get crushed any form or fashion. It's harder to lose when you've put that much work into something. With the card game, again, assembling a deck and playtesting, yes, like you put a lot of time into that. But at base value, you assemble a deck, you sleeve the deck. That's what you've done into the physical aspect of your cards.
You're just going through rounds. You're just getting the repetition in. That's pretty much what you're doing, as opposed to all the love you put into and the time you put into putting these models together and painting them and, looking at each other's models and the uniqueness of each model and each paint scheme and the work people have done. Yeah, it's a lot different for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't help but kind of start forging stories in your head as you're spending this much time with your models. You start to get attached. It sounds cheesy, but you get attached.
Trogoth Hag.
Yeah.
Well, what was it for you, the Glotkin, Brian?
That was the Glotkin, man. Especially because I didn't give any craps at all about the lore. I just thought the models looked cool until I got the Glotkin. And I believe it was you, Jarrod, that told me about their backstory. I'm like, this is freaking cool. And I actually started reading the books. Like you could have just torn the first half out of most of those books, and I wouldn't have cared at all. Like I did not care about the story. But like the last few armies that I've picked up, or the books that I've picked up, I picked up books for armies I don't even have, just because I want to like read through them. Not like the rule sets or anything, the actual story of them, like with Archeon and the Vanguard, and like picking up the book for Slanesh, and like it's just been cool to just kind of read through some of their history.
Or like Flesh Eater Courts. I know that was a big one lore wise for you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to read over. So and it's just kind of expanded the way I think about the game, that from where I would have ever thought it would have gone. Because I'm mainly D&D. When I think lore, when I think that kind of stuff, I like that more nebulous, not a defined out storyline per se, but kind of letting my own imagination take hold of what things have happened. But the stories that they create and like that foundation, I mean, I'm surprised there's not some super popular Warhammer RPG that's being played right now with just based off of that general. Maybe there is. I don't know.
Let's say
maybe I'm way behind the times here, but
that's what's funny. It's cool. That's the other cool thing about us is some of us are like myself, are like hardcore into everything and following it all. And I'm actually glad you said that genuinely, because I think this year a Warhammer Age of Sigmar tabletop role-playing game is getting released.
Good.
That would be really fun.
I'd love for it to be something where it can still have that combat element, but maybe like small man units that you're controlling with like a lead character of that unit, but maybe quicker combat. Because I don't know, man. Like I'm real curious to see how they do it, because part of what I think is really cool about the whole Warhammer thing is the armies, the big battles.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you condense that down, but still keep that same vibe, but also tell a story? Like how do you tell a story from the perspective of Nurgle? Like I don't know, but if they could do it.
Well, it gives me an idea. Man. Like you just gave me an idea right there, because I want to run the game. I want us to play it. I want us to put it on the channel. I want us to get into this because I want it to build into us making an army in the game and then actually like playing it against each other. But it would be cool because as a player character, I don't know how the classes are going to work, but we're going to manipulate it to work for what we want anyway. Right. It would be cool if you had like a citizen of Sigmar, just regular human or regular dwarf, whatever you want to play, that unknowingly starts to become more and more corrupted by Nurgle, and like how that would affect the party and how it would affect you as you or the party starts to realize what's happening. Like, I think that's how it could be played in a role-playing setting and on an individual like character level instead of big army level.
Well, you got to imagine all the chaos gods while they all fight each other. I mean, maybe there's stories there between the chaos gods and how they're going to interact with their different units.
Well, one thing is for certain, Brian, there will be a goblin spellcaster.
I don't doubt that.
Oh yeah, we'll make it work. And what's cool is like in the Mortal Realms, you do see things like there are some grots in the cities. There's definitely ogres because they a lot of them will become mercenaries and sell their sword or sell their hammer or sell their belly, whatever. So there's a lot of potential there to mix up races, mix up grand alliances, because that is a cool thing that this overall story of Sigmar has presented is, yes, the grand alliances are kind of their sides per se, but even within that, there's enemies and fighting, and even across those, there's alliances. And
I mean, when ogres can ally with the, remember in the story where the Sigmar was the ogre story, remember, where they met up and the orcs were there and they just wanted to eat the orcs.
Oh yeah, this is right when Mod Tribes was releasing that series of short stories that came out online.
I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, I did as well. You know, it's funny. I picked up Phoenix Temple. I picked up a lot more than that. I got a lot of elves off of a side purchase, but playing Phoenix Temple was amazing for me. And Chris and I started playing a narrative campaign, which is like kind of the role play version of Warhammer and the small scale that you're talking about, Brian, where you can have like a single model and go into things, or you could have actual armies and go into things. But I just took it and was like, I'm writing a story for an individual character. And then when we get into fighting, we'll just use their war scrolls and I'll come up with some stuff, for special abilities and artifacts or whatever. But more importantly, I just want to tell a story on the tabletop. And that's where the Mysteries of the Phoenix Battle Report series came out. Chris and I are working on another episode now. We've got all the audio and everything recorded. We just need to actually record the game itself. But now with the role-playing game coming out by a company called Crucible 7, I think it is what it is. I hope that opens up the doors to have way more single character narrative, because there's so rich of an environment to have ground level story and game going on in Age of Sigmar.
Oh, I agree. And especially as, we're all, before we were Warhammer players, we were tabletop gamers. And so it would be really nice to be able to merge those together and figure out a way to do, tabletop role playing, and then also incorporate the tabletop wargaming together seamlessly in a fun role playing experience.
That would be nice. But I'll tell you what I want more than anything. And this is going to harken back to Jarrod. You'll probably remember this. Just want them to give it another stab with the MMO RPG, because the stuff that they were doing was right, even though the game had its failings.
And you're talking about the Warhammer Fantasy MMO, right?
Yeah, dude.
There is I don't want to say sanctioned private server that has a higher population than it had when it was Plague. It's post all the patches that fixed everything, and they are creating more
adding content. Yeah.
And that's
I looked that up the other day.
That's pretty insane to me, because you're right. A lot of people in the MMO community forget, or just didn't know in the first place, that game, that Warhammer MMO, innovated almost everything that's in MMOs now. Public quests.
Public quests was a big one.
The like non-instanced realms or like outside areas and all that. Like the way even characters work. It was way ahead of its time.
I'm so upset I missed that one with you guys.
Well, don't be, because the initial run of it did not last long.
But y'all had so much fun, though.
We did.
It was a lot of fun. Was a lot of fun.
Yeah. There were bright wizards, though.
Yeah.
And this is before they fixed that. And they took way too long to fix that and basically lost the community, because bright wizards were so powerful that it was just impossible to PvP. And that was a PvP oriented game, where that was another
almost
thing.
Entirely.
Yeah, and that was the other thing they kind of innovated, was PvP questing and like world PvP questing and world PvP leveling you. You could level from 1 to max just PvPing and have fun with it too. Not like painfully, but you could actually do it.
Didn't they have the scaling too as well? Like I seem to recall that. Like it would scale opponents, so that way high level people couldn't come into your zone. And
I think so. That may be how you were able to level with PvP, is they would, like, their equipment would still be good, but their level would scale. I'm pretty sure you're right with that.
I don't wanna lie. So if somebody's out there being like, that's not what they did, hey,
that Brian guy.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It was a long time ago. Okay, lots of stuff happened, but I just remember really enjoying the game, and then not enjoying it, and then quitting. And so I really liked what they were going for. I really enjoyed how it felt starting out, and I wish they could have hammered away at it a little bit more and made it work, because it was really fun. Maybe they will. I don't know. We'll see. MMOs, unfortunately, it feels like have hit the brick wall, and like they're not really going anywhere anymore, which sucks.
But, yeah, it's kind of sad. Survival games are kind of finding a new life. But MMOs, you're right, they feel kind of like they're petering out, especially with this whole Elysium thing that fell under. Seems to have been a big blow to the MMO community. But I'm not going to speak too much on it because I'm not versed enough to know. I've been out of it too long.
Same.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a scam that they pulled, but there's still Amazon's coming out with a project. I know that. That's supposed to be really cool. And they've got the money to fund it. So there's a good possibility not only that gets released, there's a good possibility they'll keep it going until it gets really good. That's probably my biggest hope. Either that or that Pantheon. I know I've been looking forward to that one because that just looks like old school EQ, and I'm okay with that.
Man, I still occasionally log on just to play Black Desert Online. I really enjoyed that one, but I just stopped. Do you ever have games where you just kind of stop? And you're like, why? You're like, because I stopped. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just hit that wall and you're like, okay, I'm ready to put this one down.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's been most computer games, period, with me, with rare exception. I am liking Shadespire Online because that's a really fun Warhammer product to be able to play because you get to have a CCG and a tabletop game all in one. But again, it's part CCG and I don't like having to collect all the cards anymore. So being able to just do it online and play that is great. Right. And then now with this, at the time of this podcast, we're in the middle of the quarantine. So Tabletop Simulator has become amazing because we can still play each other with Warhammer just over the internet. And it works surprisingly well.
Yeah, you were showing me that the other day, and it looks like it's pretty straightforward. You should definitely put out like a tutorial or something, just showing people like how it works and how you can play a game with it.
There's a bunch out there, but I may just put one out anyway. I'll cater it
to
explain
one out, then. God.
Yeah. Well, I'll just cater it to I'm just explaining it to y'all, and I'll just make it a video anyway. Might as well. I'm going to be here doing it, so might as well film it.
Right.
But the more the merrier, because it's a lot of fun, and I think even after quarantine, it's going to be useful for like list building and just kind of seeing what it feels like to have your models on the table. Because I've had a problem where I have all these lists that I make, so then I try to paint them, and then I play them, and then sometimes I come across like I don't like this. I spent so much time painting this, and I don't like it.
Right.
Which is why.
So what kind of what kind of lists are you working on right now? I know I've got a list that I've been working on that you and me played the other day, but I don't know if you have anything new you've been working on.
Since the time we played the list you're talking about against my list, I filmed that army during Adepticon at home. I was invited by Anthony from AOS Coach to have a battle report played during that event, and I played that list with revisions on there against Chris, and it was that Cities of Sigmar Hallowheart with 2 30-man units of Phoenix Guard, a 20-man unit of Free Guild Gunners, a bunch of other Free Guild stuff, and it worked well. It's weird. It's the first time I've let myself go away from a Frostheart Phoenix to do a Flamespire Phoenix instead, and I can't even say that it's better. I can just tell you what it does to my mentality, and I want to get it in combat. I want to throw it forward. I think I was getting too defensive with my Frostheart Phoenix and keeping it out of combat just to get that -1 to wound. And I was like, that's 320 points to get -1 to wound if I don't get into combat.
A lot of points, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the command ability too, the Captain of the Phoenix Guard. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a Flamespire Phoenix because A, I'll save points, and B, I can fly over stuff to do mortal wounds, and my mentality gets affected where I'm okay with it getting into combat. Whereas for some reason I'm not with my Frostheart. So it's a lot more productive when it's fighting. I can tell you that.
Believe it. Well, the list I was running, that it was the Harbinger of Decay, the Glockin, the Doom Bull, 30 Plague Bearers, the Blight Kings, 2 units of those. So the Plague Bearers and the Blight Kings make up my my battle line. And then I'm, using the Pestilent Throng, so using some of those Beasts of Chaos, and using some Beastigors, and then 30 of those Archers.
Yeah, the Ungor Raiders.
Yeah, the Ungor Raiders. And so like all of the Beastigors, because you know one of the problems with one of the problems you have whenever you're running Nurgle is just they're so slow. They're so slow. Even though you can plop a tree down, you still got to stay within range of it to run. So one of the things that I really liked about putting in the Beastigors especially and using the Pestilent Throng is now you can kind of put those Beastigors on the outside, right? And they can just haul butt. You throw in a unit, a big unit of these Ungor Raiders, push them up behind those units, and you can quickly take something out. Like I took out your wizard instantly.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Like a 30, I mean, it's a lot of Ungor Raiders, but they hit terribly. But he had lookout cert and everything, and you're still just like, run forward, shoot, it's dead. He gone.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's great about it is even if they die, I believe they blow up. They like do +2, like to do some kind of mortal wounds or something. So it's like you can sacrifice those guys just to get them forward, to get the enemy engaged, and you get like bonuses because of the charge. And then if they blow up and die, well, that's fine too. And then you've got that 30-man plague bearer slog pushing forward. And that thing is the tariest of tar pits. It is.
Sean, he is not joking.
I know. I remember hearing you speaking about it, just so upset and so mad and so salty about that thing.
In 5 turns, I did not kill that unit with a 30-man unit of Phoenix Guard, with Captain of the Phoenix Guard every turn, and a Knight Azeros letting reroll 1. So I was hitting on 3s. No, they had a Twin Stone, so I was hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 3s, and rerolling fails. 5 turns, still did not kill that unit.
Yeah, it's an incredible, I mean, just an incredible tar pit, because one of the things I did is I specifically put in the Harbinger, not just because he's got that aura that lets, mortal Nurgles reroll. He also is a demon. And since he's a demon hero, he actually affects the plague bearers and gives them like a modification to their what is it called? You get to re-roll your save rolls of 1 if the unit while it's within 7 inches of a friendly Nurgle demon hero. So you just run that 30-man slog up, right? And then next to it you put you can put your Glockkin or your plague your Blight Kings, all the other mortals. And you can kind of keep that blob to one half of the battlefield, and that's why you let the Beastigors go around the outside. Is because if you're keeping your demons, your mortals, kind of right there, along with your slog, you've got the slog, basically forcing everyone to go around or get stuck in them, and your mortals get to just pop up and still take advantage of the 5-up save. For mortal wounds and wounds. So it seemed like it had a lot of synergy, and I could feel it when we played that's what it was doing. So now it's just a matter of getting those painted up, and I'm sure I'll be doing that on the battle report.
You should paint them as though they're covered in tar. I think that would be the best unit. Just a big mass of.
Which one's your tar pit? The tar pit, actually.
Let's see here. That'd be the unit with a 5-up wound negation and cloud of flies, because there's 30 of them. Subtract 2 from hit rolls that are made with shooting phase. Subtract 1 from hit rolls and rerolls of 1s while they're in the save roll, because they're near a dude. And then also they get to, if you do manage to kill them, every turn there's a chance you're going to bring them all back.
Yep, you get that 1.
Get that 1. Come on, 1.
Well, Sean, I know we've got already have one episode of Sean Gets Good, but you got a particular list you've been working on lately that you're planning on filming with?
I have recently become conflicted, and you know why.
You have a giant problem?
I do have a giant problem, and it's even more giant than my previous giant problem, because what they just spoiled today, was it today or yesterday?
Yeah, as of the recording of this podcast, they today was the day they spoiled actual new models for Sons of Behemoth.
Yes,
however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Mm,
B.
they look like Sons of B.
Wait a
Man.
minute. So that army is SOB.
It is that. You SOB. So so I'm definitely going to go Sean Gets Good number 2, and I'm still going to try to crank out some I'm convinced, not convinced because I'm very not convinced, but I want to try to make a functional unit of just the Spider Riders, just the Venom clan. They're just so inferior to just the base units of Stabos and the things that are traditionally run, your sneaky snuffers and, the standard Gets army. Just slinging spells, putting up a bunch of Stabos and making walls and things that come back and Hand-to-Gorkin all over the place. Like, it works, and that's very effective, but I love spiders. I love the Spider Rider models, love how they look, I love their lore. Like you said, Brian, I'm not a person that gets into lore, and I don't like reading the books about the lore, but it did get me really interested, and I read the ogre lore and I read the spider lore, and I've started to read other ones as well and read through the books, and was really, really interested, and I found it intriguing. But I'm still working on trying to get a good spider list together. Not even really good, just something that can try to hold its own.
Something at least palatable.
Yeah, it's hard to do because costs are so poor on their just their battle lines. So I'm still working that out. It's hard to number crunch because I start having to take things I want out and putting in things more efficient, and I start losing the kind of the heart of what I wanted to play initially for that inherent competitiveness that I have, and wanting to make it functional, and wanting to pinch and squeeze numbers and make it maximally efficient. So I'm still working on getting some spiders together. I want to run just some of the planar Ragnaroks. There's several different things I want to do. The web launchers. I know they're not good, but I really want to make them work. So
you've fallen victim to that every game we play. It's like it's not great, but if it works,
hey, that's happened before, Jarrod. Okay,
I know.
Yeah, you know where this is going. You know where this is going, and I'm scowling at you.
Just let it happen.
The Dark Lord is angry. Okay, so. And this is kind of one of those things where I need to keep on tweaking and tuning, and I need to be able to have the rounds to see how things function under certain conditions, to see if there is any functionality, because I do see it there. Like, I see a few things that are bad. They really are. They are bad, but in a vacuum, they're bad. But trying to put it together and see if you can make a synergy to make that thing that is in a vacuum bad functional with the right support. And so that's what I'm really working on, and it's very difficult. So,
well, it's because you, like you said before, you're not just balancing what's the best. You want Spider Fang to work. So if it's working, but you've lost too much of the soul of it being Spider Fang, like you have like one Spider Fang unit.
Yep. Then I have to pull it back.
And it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at that point. Because it's not just about winning with the list. It's, I want to win how I want to win. Yep. Even if it won't work, I'm going to do my best to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I've done it before. We played other games where we've made things work our way, and it's just taken a lot of hard work and time to figure out a way to build lists that work based off of what we want to do. And I think that's one area where we have a really good advantage is our background we have with playing CCGs and playing competitive games, and being able to really look at a meta overall and look at lists and try to tune them based off of, current meta and different things that we can see there. So I want it to work. I really do. And I'm going to keep working on it. And also, ogres are always going to be there. They're so much fun to play. And with the new models coming out, with the giants coming out, I think that's going to be such a good addition, theoretically, to the giant army. I don't know, just giant. The way they're describing it, the fact that they can be in any Grand Alliance, they're basically mercs. The fact that fits the ogres so well in the storyline, but also kind of how ogres play, just small model count of really powerful units, and seeing if I can find something that really complements that play style already. So that's kind of what I'm looking in. It's just those. The trolls I've still kind of got on back burner. I really want to play them, but they're not as appealing to me. So still love them, but not as much as the Spider Riders right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got a lot going on with my list, but the most one I want to focus on right now is Hallowheart. You know, it's one of the cities I haven't recorded yet. I've played a few games with it. It's one of those where it's a mix of what is competitive with what I want it to be anyway, because it's all dark elves, you know, which is partly good for the power, but you know, for the other half of it, it's not. It's got like a sorceress on Black Dragon and sorceress on foot, like a billion battle mages, and but then it's like 20 man unit of Blackguard and a 20 man unit of executioners, 20 man unit of Dark Shards, which are the crossbow guys, and like a 10 man unit of Bleak Swords. And anyway, it's all dark elf models, and then it has a bunch of the Mortal Wound endless spells like Purple Sun, Geminids, does have Emerald Life Swarm, Ether Void Pendulum, and I think one more. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm focusing on that list to record with next. But that's taking a lot of practice because I think I've got like 15 plus abilities to do in my hero phase. So AOS reminders has been a godsend for that.
Right.
And that's, you know, a lot of these times you're seeing us record, that's our first game with the army, or that's the first time with that list. We're like, haven't practiced it and then put it on camera. We're practicing on camera.
Yep.
So, you know, you might see some rules be wrong. You might see us miss things, but you know, we don't have any shame.
You do see.
But yeah, we don't have the shame nor the time to care. So if we can get it filmed, we're going to film it. It's fine. We're going to do it.
Be different if this is what we did for a living. I mean, we would definitely take the time to get, but like we're hobbyists and this is something we just enjoy doing. So we just want, you know, to share it with others that feel the same way.
Yeah. And we're, like you said, we're all hobbyists and we're all parents. Every single one of us have kids and full-time jobs. And that makes it a little difficult. I'm not real sure how I do this, but it works. So I'm not questioning it. But yeah, the Hallowheart list, I want to do, I've actually, the point I was rambling on about there is I actually am getting practice games in with this one because it's just too much. It would take too long to physically record the battle report.
Oh my goodness.
Trying to learn this on film.
Is it going to be as bad as the first time I tried to play that Goblin list with the what was it, like 13 casters we had in it? Something like that?
Yeah, it's very similar, except with Hallowheart, every one of my casters can cast an additional spell, and they can all learn an additional spell from the spell lore.
Oh, wow.
Plus whatever realm spells we have, plus whatever is on their war scroll. You know, it's like there's a lot of spells to keep track of, and I have a lot of combos.
Busy list.
Yeah, it's made to, because it's going to be hard to resist. People are going to have a hard time resisting giving me first turn. So I screen really bad with it, with my 20-man unit of Dark Shards, and let you get into me, and then I nuke you with my endless spells, rather than trying to get them all out there first turn. I basically just buff up my units, and then throw them at you, and then I'd start nuking you. But that's a lot, very combo intensive, and the timing and order of spells is extremely important. So if I screw one thing up, it crumbles. So I will screw it up.
You're so right about that too. People's willingness to give you first turn. Like if you win the roll to go first, it seems significantly more times, people are giving you the option to go first.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost inevitable with cities, because we have battalions, but they're all, I don't want to say bad, but they're all extremely restrictive on models with what you can have in the battalion. And each city has one battalion, and each city has specific units that you can have in it. And this is an army that has like 20 plus units, but you can only have like one or two per battalion. So usually a city's army has upwards of 10 plus drops.
Well, good.
Well, we'll have to try that out. I can throw it against to start. I can bring out an ogre list or one of my bad spider lists that's I have smaller turns, especially ogres, or one of Brian's lists, like the the Nurgle that's less model count, so that we can kind of get through a game a little bit faster.
I'll bring rats for those casters.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian's like 3-drop Skaven army somehow.
Yeah.
One of the larger count armies. Somehow Brian has made 3-drop. I don't know, those wheels. Like, I think that's the thing when you were talking about that, Brian, that appealed to you first is those hamster wheels they have that run around the board. And like the models for the Skaven are so cool. There's such unique models to these to this game.
Well, especially Skyer. And I know, Brian, you're talking about how much you love that list. You're like, it can play one of two ways. It's going to blow you off the table, or it's going to blow itself off the table.
I'm good with either way.
It's fun either way. It's hilarious when something goes wrong that is a game mechanic.
Release the gimbal limiter.
That's probably my favorite ability. Well, I have two now. After we saw the what is it? The new one you were showing me earlier? The ones that get feared. The Jockle Jangle.
The Jabberslife.
Jabberslife.
That's Beasts of Chaos. Yeah. I was looking at building a unit with those because they have a kind of a neat ability. They have an aura that, like, if you get within 6 inches, and so it's not fully within or anything like that. It's within 6 inches. So that kind of gives you you can kind of manipulate them on the board to just kind of barely touch a couple of different units. And they're only like 140 points. But if you're within range, then you roll it. At the start of your hero phase, you roll a dice for each enemy unit within 6 inches of any Jabberslife, and on a 6-up, that unit on a 6, that unit cannot attempt to cast or unbind spells, move, or attack until the start of your next hero phase.
Within 6 inches on a 6-up, right?
Yep.
That's my favorite. Like, I love the Dumb and Dumber style abilities, and what I mean by that is, so you're saying there's a chance.
Same here. I fall prey to those all the time because they're so much fun to play with, and I think Brian's in the same boat. Like, if you have something like that, the one memorable game that it works is going to be the game that everyone remembers. Exactly. The other ones don't count.
Well, you get blown off the board. Well, what do you expect? I got to roll a 6, but that one time they can't move for like 3 turns because you just happen to roll your, kind of just happen to roll it, man.
You know, if it was Jarrod playing that model, he would only roll 6s. That's all that would happen. You would basically not play. Okay, well, great. Jarrod goes again. He rolls another 6. Okay, I pass. Take your turn.
We're in a unique position with lists like that because, it's hard to justify doing that, but we have a problem and lots of models, and we have the channel. So, like, we're not just focused on tournaments anymore or competitive builds. We have them and we record them, but then we have the excuse to be like, it would be funny to film, and we can do stuff like
entertaining.
This. Yeah.
You have is there any way to mix those with the other one, the rattling that has the crazy, I can't even pronounce it now, the gimbalometer? Is that it?
That's not even close to it.
It is now.
Gimbalometer.
Boy, my gimbalometer.
Gimbalometer. What is it?
It's releasing the gimbal limiter.
It's actually 2 words, Sean.
Gimbalometer. But what it is you could run that probably in a Grand Alliance, I bet.
God, can you imagine when we do our Grand Alliance battle? Yeah. Brian, everything you have has to be, if you do this, something happens. Your entire army.
We'll have to make special rules.
How are you playing? That seems such a chaos thing to have. It's so funny. I play chaos and you play destruction.
Way around.
Yeah,
you play destruction.
So it makes sense.
You all right there, buddy?
Got hit by the gimbalometer.
I released my gimbalometer too soon.
So you should definitely play those together when you do, and I'm going to see if I can find all of my do random stuff miniatures. It'd be so much fun.
I would not be
so many more though,
because I could definitely find some random stuff these guys can do, especially with all the rats that I have.
Yeah, you've got a lot.
I don't have a lot of goofy things with orders, so I think I would just try to bring as many models as possible.
Yeah,
bring,
but
like, every
that's
elf I
order
own.
sucks, and
Oh.
I think we could hold a vote on the channel. Does order suck? I'm gonna vote yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
So-
opposed say nay.
Nay.
There we have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it passes.
Yeah.
Order officially sucks, and we can now move on with the channel.
And this is a perfect example of how sometimes Grand Alliances can work together to defeat a second Grand Alliance.
That's correct. That is correct, Sean. And you know what? Now destruction kind of sucks. So all those who agree.
I was gonna suggest a 2v2, but maybe it is a battle royale.
I don't know. I feel that Bryan is trying to play the diplomacy angle of our future four-way game at this juncture already.
You know what? I
Just-
feel like the only one who's going to truly understand me is Death. Where is Chris? Right.
So, Chris, let me get this right. Destruction and order suck, right?
I mean, they're the worst, right? They're the worst two factions. And so
I don't know. I think Death would have a hard time allying with you, especially if you bring Skaven on the board, because I don't think Nagash likes them.
Nagash loves Skaven. We die all the time.
Yeah, you do die all the time. You also screw up his plans.
And look at the other
Not on
options,
purpose.
though. Look what's going to be on the board. What are they going to pick from? The true reality is they're probably going to be more inclined to ally with you, Jarrod, than trolls, spider rider, goblins, stink mullet.
Oh, Death?
Yeah, I would think so.
Maybe. I mean, because they do want to ally with the people that will cause more death. So I can see why they would pick me.
I see.
Rats, bruh. Rats. Just saying.
Oh, man.
We destroyed the world once. And
Twice, almost. Almost. With this whole Soul Wars thing, the Shaiish Nadir or whatever it is. Skaven screwed that up for Nagash too. So,
Look.
That's what Skaven are good for.
yep, screwing things up.
It's like when you get into your car and you smell something funky and you realize that a rat has gotten into your fan blade. That's exactly what you guys do.
Thanks, Vermin Lord.
It's the power of the 13.
Oh god, it's funny you said Bryan playing the diplomatic role, and I was like, somebody get Sigmar off of Twitter.
Well, Bryan's always done that, though, so it doesn't surprise me.
Well, heck, on that note, I think we've kind of covered enough for our first podcast. We've got plenty we can follow up on and plenty we've talked about. Hopefully this takes a step into getting to know us, getting to know who's on the channel. Sorry we couldn't have Chris here. Again, she's mega pregnant at this point and basically stuck having to lay down, otherwise be in severe pain. So, because we have large babies. So
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
For such a small lady and such a small man, y'all make large babies.
at least I do something right.
Well, for somebody who keeps bringing life into the world, wanting to play death. God.
It's so fitting, though. But yeah, I agree, Jarrod. I think that was. I think we got through a lot and be a good place for us to kind of keep moving forward on. And I do. Bryan and I have never really gotten around to being able to play each other, so I think that's something we need to do here soon. Is Bryan and I need to get a few grudge matches under our belt.
We've played once and you killed my Glocken, and I don't want you to think I forgot about that. So I'm coming for you.
Well, and I'll tell you, in my defense, and this isn't really my defense, this is more of bragging. This was before the ogres even had a book.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
I hope you remember you still lost that match,
But-
sir.
The only thing that seems to be remembered is the fact that I killed your Glocken.
Well, it is remembered. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Old Glotty Boy's got a paint job upgrade, and he's ready to lay the smackdown on your candy ass.
Well, myself, my friend, if you
Mhm,
will,
mhm.
have an exploded
Uh-huh.
iron blaster
Oh,
that has been
That
recently
is-
painted poorly to represent an exploded iron blaster. And I do have some additional
uh-huh.
iron guts and other ogres, gut busters, that would like
Uh-huh.
to come and cordially challenge you to a duel if you aren't cowardly. If you're not a
Let's
coward,
wait for you to
yellow
get good
bellied
first.
coward.
We're just waiting for the get good stuff to get fun, and then we can go ahead
first.
with it. Let's get good
Let me
first.
get good first, and then I'll bring the gets your way. There's a lot of work that's got to be done there. I do not feel comfortable cordially challenging you.
Where they at, bruh? Where you at?
Do you want me to bring them? I will bring.
Bring your spiders. I'm stepping on all these spiders. I don't care how many times you've painted them. Okay, and rebased them, and painted them, and rebased them, and painted them, and rebased them. I'll still squash those bugs.
I totally forgot about that.
We haven't forgotten.
We never forget.
And I'd like to remind you, Sean, that you actually left your ogres at my house, so they've already been brought in.
All right. Well,
there you go.
That'll work. Enjoyed talking with you guys. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll have to do this more. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Brian, we'll have our grudge match soon. I mean, no reason, but I mean, I don't know why this guy happens to be here.
What is that?
Just saying.
Is that
single?
It's hard for me to tell how many layers of base are on that thing. It's lost all its details.
Single. This is a
It looks like a blob with
Yes, I
three
did
legs.
not
out of it.
reprime multiple times. He's been primed once and painted once, and I was happy with it.
But where are those other spiders?
Let's not talk about those. Those aren't relevant. I've learned from my repriming ways. He may not have a lot of detail, but he's got heart, Brian, okay? So what he lacks in detail, he makes up for in heart. So
Right. Well, just get him on the short bus, get him to the match, and we'll make this thing go.
we'll do it.
Sounds like we have a grudge match. Makes me happy we release battle reports on Sundays.
Listen here, brother. When you step into the realms of possibility, you face only one man. Me.
I will have a retort for you at a later date. For now, I will stare menacingly at you, and I will point my finger just to enhance the anxiety that you're feeling.
It's working. On that note, thanks for listening and watching. Thank you for tuning in to Razortree Productions. Click the card to see more videos like this, and click the subscribe button and the bell to receive updates when we post battle reports, rules, and tactics videos. You may pledge on our Patreon page, link in the description, to support us and unlock access to early release videos, music downloads, and more. Finally, please consider visiting alsa.org to learn about ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, and donate to fund research for a cure. For any links concerning Razortree Productions, you can visit razortreeproductions.com. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.